Steve Moran here with Senior Housing Forum, and we are on the last day of the NIC Spring Conference in San Diego, where the weather is, I've been complaining every entry about the weather. It's been really cold and blustery here in San Diego. It's actually kind of, it's nice and clear, it's just chilly. And I am here with Bob Kramer, who is the founder of NIC. And you probably more than anybody else in the industry are just constantly thinking and pushing us to expand our horizon. And this conference has all been about this integrated care model. And so talk to me a little bit about why it's so important to operators and really to residents and teams and everybody.
Well, ultimately, the whole value proposition of seniors housing, Steve, as you know well, is about what we provide for the residents, not in terms of healthcare, but in terms of helping them live their life to the fullest and achieve what their goals are at this particular stage in their life. And so if we're going to do that, part of what that means is understanding, particularly as we're dealing with frail elders, and I often say we are home in any given day to 2.5 to 3 million frail elders, most with multiple chronic conditions and many with functional limitations, cognitive, physical mobility, whatever. And for those individuals, the future is not taking them to hospitals and ERs. The future is not having your overnight shift be the ER of the local hospital. And the future is bringing healthcare services to seniors where they live. And the future in terms of value for that resident, as well as for whoever's the payer who's holding the financial risk for delivering the healthcare for that individual, managing their healthcare life, the future value for them is care coordination. And so that means we have this incredible opportunity, because no longer are acute care hospitals going to be and the specialist doctor office going to be the center of the universe for frail elders. The center of the universe is going to be increasingly bringing the preventative and wellness and chronic disease management services to them where they live. Well, no one houses more than we do. And so, this is a huge opportunity. It's also a challenge. But care coordination, put it simply, just several thoughts. If I'm an adult daughter and I'm paying $4,000 to $6,000 a month, maybe more, depending on what area, especially if there's significant care fees as well. Am I in the future going to tolerate paying for that when you leave all the actual care coordination to me? Where I get the call at 2 a.m. in the morning, we just put your mom with the paramedics and she's going to the emergency room. And you're either 10 miles away and you think, oh, I gotta get dressed and go to the ER, or you're 100 or 1,000 miles away and just panic. You can't get a flight, you can't get there, your mom's sitting all alone for 5 hours in the ER of the local hospital. You know, right now, for the more well-to-do that primarily we serve, they will not tolerate that in the future and call that acceptable seniors housing and care. And so this is both an opportunity and a challenge. And now the interest of payers, particularly with more and more seniors moving into Medicare Advantage or MA plans, those payers are being given more and more flexibility by CMS to basically use their healthcare dollars to reimburse for services that are not traditional necessarily healthcare services. And again, that provides an even further opportunity for us. So we have this huge opportunity, but also this will be the reality in the future. And so we see as NIC, part of our role is kind of being a thought leader that's anticipating where it's that classic Wayne Gretzky quote, we're looking to where the puck's going. And this conference is all about where the puck's going.
So I'm an operator. I've been here at the NIC Spring Conference. I'm convinced that this is something I need to do. But I've got care coordination, I've got Medicare Advantage programs, and then and I go back to my real life, and I've got these hospitals, and they won't hardly talk to me, and they're uncooperative, and they're jerks, and you say they may not be at the top of the heap, but they still behave like they're at the top of the heap. And I've got to have this care coordinator, and I don't even know exactly what that is. Where do I start?
Well, I think one of the things you start with understanding what are the dynamics in your market. By that I mean, for instance, some markets have penetration of 60% of Medicare Advantage, some have penetration of 10%. So where is your market? Secondly, who are the MA plans in your market? Thirdly, for the major health systems, your major referral sources, are any of them in ACO type arrangements? Are any of them in downside risk ACO arrangements? Why is that significant? Because basically the studies so far are showing it's only when hospitals start to have downside risk you actually see them open to really doing some things differently.
Okay, I want to stop you for just a second. Let's take a side journey and just define what downside risk means. I know what it means, but I think there are some people who may not know what that is.
Good question. One of the challenges, and as we enter into this whole area, is terminology.
Yeah.
Because much of it is totally foreign to the private pay seniors housing operator, let alone their lender or equity partner.
That's right.
So downside risk in this case means where it's great to have upside risk, meaning if you save dollars, healthcare system dollars, you get to participate in those savings. But downside risk means if we give you $10,000 from Medicare, and we say now you're responsible to meet all the healthcare needs of this individual, but it costs you $14,000. It costs you $14,000. You lost $4,000. And so that's downside risk.
Okay, so you're looking, so if I'm an operator, if I find a hospital who's got that downside risk, then that becomes a place for me to have a conversation.
A place for you to have a conversation, but again, one of the keys with the sort of players in the healthcare continuum, you have to understand their pain points. Where are they at risk? At risk could be a star rating. For instance, if you're dealing with a Medicare Advantage plan, for them it's all about star ratings. Critically important. These are not star ratings for nursing homes. These are star ratings from MA plans. So understanding what are the pain points of the healthcare provider or payer in your market is critically important. That's why much of our program here is we're doing basic blocking and tackling. What is Medicare? What is Medicare Advantage? How do you yourself even think about participating in risk, the kind of risk I just talked about? You're right, these are pretty basic steps, but they're really important steps. I guess the key point I want to make, since this is about investment and we're a capital markets facing organization, it's I would say always been true about seniors housing and care generally, but boy, it's true. It's really, really profound in terms of if you move into this area just to chase additional revenues, you will fail miserably. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is this is ultimately about providing better results and a better life for your residents. And so you better first figure out how you're going to do that. And so the question I would ask for those, the challenge I would pose, and also the opportunity to providers is, do you think in 5 years, let alone 10 years, people are going to pay you $7,000 a month to basically, as the adult child, be the ones responsible to do all the coordination amongst different doctors, all the figuring out about different prescriptions and is one contraindicated for another, to get the phone calls in the middle of the night, to figure out all the intricacies of what Medicare or Medicare Advantage pays for, what do we have to do to get mom on Medicaid if her dollars run out? I overwhelmingly believe the answer to that is no, and that seniors housing will have to deliver on what has been the implied premise in the past, namely, you give us your loved one, we will take care of your worries. We don't do that. We do not do that. The adult child is still the quarterback. They are the ultimate care coordinator. The future for us, when we're housing those frail elderly, it doesn't mean we're the healthcare provider. This is an important distinction. We may be partnering with primary care physicians and nurse practitioners. We're not necessarily suddenly becoming docs in our own building. I'm not saying that. But we provide the platform for that care coordination to take place. And I think that will be the future. Now, that's not to say, by the time the boomers turn 85, I believe the average age of entry into many of our communities that's need-driven will actually be late 80s. Late 80s. I think others are dreaming about and designing a whole new product that's going to serve people in their 70s and 80s who aren't driven by mobility and cognitive issues, but are really focused on lifestyle. And I cheer them on. I'm excited about that. We're really talking about two slightly different groups here that we're serving. So a lot of the multifamily and hospitality industry folks coming into our sector, 80% of them will be somebody else's growth strategy because they'll fail. 20% will truly innovate because they're not driven by the old perceptions of this is seniors housing. And they're going to come up with something that will be very lifestyle focused and will hopefully be very innovative and will appeal to a lot of boomers. So we're really, I think part of having the session I just came out of, part of having a whole new chapter in our life made possible by increased longevity is we have to rethink housing for different phases of life. And so the very care-driven piece of that's going to be primarily folks in their late 80s and 90s and past 100. And there will be an entire new product, which quite frankly doesn't exist today, that is going to be very lifestyle-oriented. And then you'll, I think, have one product that will cross the two. And that'll be a product that will appeal to true planners. And that'll be a product that will be some version of the life plan community that has, I believe it will be in one way or another intergenerational. It'll be tied to lifelong learning and lifelong engagement. It'll attract planners because their planners tend to be college educated, which means, quite frankly, usually they have resources. Doesn't mean they're wealthy, but it means they have some resources. I think, too, you're going to see an explosion of products in this sphere, too, which still, again, for planners, say that the care is there when I need it, but for right now, I want to move to a community that's the movers and shakers in this area in education, or the movers and shakers in the arts. And so that product to me has the greatest opportunity to bridge the sort of two types of products, to both on the one hand develop to provide the lifestyle and values of the new customer, the boomer, but at the same time address an integrated care platform for folks as they age.
So I'm sort of hearing two things. I'm going to actually kind of go back to the care coordination a little bit. One of the things that dawned on me as you were talking is it seems like right now a senior or their family says, oh, I've got to do something, mom can't live alone. And what we in the provider community say, well, you got to come fit into our program. What you seem to be suggesting is that we've become last chapter or next chapter experts where we really bring people in and say, well, why don't you talk to us about what you need and let's figure out that solution that meets your needs rather than you having to fit into our box.
And I wouldn't even put it in terms of needs. I'd put it in terms of goals.
Okay, great. I like that better.
What's important to you for this chapter of your life? I'm oftentimes asked questions with regard to, what do you think of, or are you supportive of the aging in place movement? And my response is, I am 100% supportive of aging in the right place for where you are in terms of your life goals. But aging in the right place is a critical thing. And I think it's a whole new way of getting people to think about, and this is why I'm so excited about the opportunity our industry has. Because this is where traditional healthcare providers don't get it. you do not, first of all, say, here's your health problem. Now, how can we get you to do all the right things to solve your health problem or your mobility challenge or whatever? Instead, it has to be, tell me what things are important to you now at this point in your life. What do you want? What's most important? So the 91-year-old gentleman says, you know, my granddaughter, or perhaps even my great-granddaughter, graduates next spring. I want to be there for that. And I want to be walking at that time. I don't want to be in a wheelchair. Or, you know, I've always wanted to go to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. It's been one of those things I've always wanted to do. So it's asking people about their life goals that give them a sense of purpose, joy, satisfaction. And then it's wrapping a health plan around those goals. They're motivated by the goals. They're not motivated by my doc told me I got to take these medicines or else. The research shows we get crappy results from that. People don't pay any attention. Yeah. But when we start to think about what's important to them, and most health professionals, frankly, don't get this. They start with a health question. The danger for seniors housing and care has been as we've had the acuity level of our residents go up, we've stopped selling actual lifestyle and social engagement and purpose. It's still in the background, but we primarily, people have needs, care-driven needs, and we're selling care. And our care package is a little bit better than their care package.
Yeah.
In the future, yes, I believe all about this care management platform, and that's critical. But ultimately, it's enabling people to achieve the goals of what's important to them, whether they're 77 or 97. And that's where I think we have such a unique opportunity because we understand issues around social engagement. The value proposition of seniors housing ultimately is about the fact that we're going to enable you to have a better health span while you have increased lifespan. And the directly related to that is social engagement and purpose of being in community versus, quite frankly, being home alone. Social isolation. We know that that kind of isolation leads to loneliness and depression. And depression is the greatest exacerbator, so to speak, of chronic conditions, and then of sort of multiplying functional limitations. So I often look at it if you imagine a graph, and here's the common kind of declinist view of older age.
Yep.
You know, we're not going to prevent death. But what we do is instead of it looking like this, we make it a little bit more of a curve like this. And the difference between this line and this curve is the value differential that we offer. It's better health span. You're going to have a higher quality of life for a longer period of time. And quite frankly, yes, you'll live longer probably too. But most people, they don't get too excited about living longer if they think it's all declinist.
Well, that's right. I mean, what's so great about living longer if you're in a nursing home with a feeding tube and your cognition is little or nothing. So
our mission is to provide what I'd call health span and activity span, and to layer that over age span. Age span's a given. People are living longer.
That's right.
But what's the quality of that life? Are they able to be in a setting that enables them to pursue life goals and things that give them a sense of connection, purpose? I mean, you've heard me before, but I think we're experts on functional needs assessments. We're experts on health assessments, not as much as functional needs. And we're experts on financial assessments. Are people going to have the ability to afford our community? We got all those things down. How many people want to be defined by their functional limitations, their health, their chronic conditions, or their financial status? They don't. What we don't do enough of is, what I think is the most important thing when somebody comes into a community, is a life joy and life satisfaction assessment. What are the moments that, no matter how down you are, give you a sense of joy when you think about them? What are the times in your life when you've had the most intense feeling of satisfaction, pride, like, boy, this was a great moment in my life, or I am just glad I was alive for this moment. When we find out about those moments, we will then craft programs that aren't make-do activities, but are rather things tied to what gives that person a sense of purpose.
It's so funny you talk to me about this because I just finished reading a book called Joyous, and it's about how to have more joy in your life. And I'm about 2/3 of the way through a book called Joy Inc. And it's about this tech company in Ann Arbor, Michigan, of all places, where their driving core value is to create joy for their. And I've been looking and thinking about our industry, and I'm thinking, we're kind of a serious bunch, and we don't laugh as much as we should, and we don't have as much joy. And yet, can you imagine walking into a senior living community and you're with your parent, and you're looking at mom and dad and saying, they're in decline, and instead of them saying, well, let's talk about your health care needs, let's say, they turn to your mom and dad and they say, so what do you want to do with the rest of your life? What do you want to be when you grow up, to somebody who's 93? And it does. I mean, what you're talking about is changing the whole paradigm, and it's so exciting.
Well, to me, lots of people call it different things. There's second act, there's all. But the reality is that truly with the boomers, we have a generation that have been given a whole nother stage of life. And our vocabulary, our thinking about aging, our thinking about retirement, none of it fits this new reality.
Yeah.
I often say, and I passionately believe it as a leading edge boomer, one of the best things the boomers can do is to retire the current notion of retirement. It's bad for your health. It's terrible for our economy. It's terrible for our social fabric. And so we've got to get out of this, because retire literally means to go away. I don't think the boomers are going to go away. But also, that's why, when I stepped out of my role as CEO of NIC, it was a transition event. Because when you transition, you announce with excitement what you're going to do next. When you retire, you're kind of saying, I'm finished, I'm done, here's my bucket list, I'm not sure how much time I got, but these are the things I hope to do. And then, folks are continuing today, waking up and realizing, I've done a lot of my bucket list. I played whatever it is, a ton of golf, been skiing, whatever. But what else is there to my life?
Yeah.
What gives me a sense of purpose? I wanted to play my 9 favorite golf courses, and I played all 9 of them. But now what?
Yeah.
I'm still going.
Yeah, that's right. What do I do now? Yeah.
So I just think that we have an opportunity to be part of helping boomers redefine this new stage, and that to me is very exciting, because I think we'll have a whole almost industry around the housing and of folks in this, I'll call it 60 to 90 stage. It'll be tied to programs like you see at Harvard and Stanford now, and you'll see many more of, which are designed to take boomers and equip them to think and plan for what they're going to do in their next act.
Well, it's one of the things that Chip Connolly, of course, is talking a lot about, and I'm a big fan of what Chip's doing, and he's got this Modern Elder Academy down in Mexico that he's actually offered me an opportunity to go down, and I just haven't taken advantage of it. But I just think
what he's doing there is kind of analogous to me to Esalen in the 60s.
Yeah.
And it's again oriented to boomers.
Yeah, exactly.
And we'll see a lot of those sorts of things, but so again, I think we'll sort of have a 60 to 90 sort of housing, and then we'll have 90 to 120.
Right.
And 90 to 120 will be more focused, because of the age then, the new age that is, will be more focused on cognitive issues, mobility limitations, so on and so forth. But it actually won't change the values at all.
No,
and that's critically important.
Yeah, and I do think, as you've talked about this, what really inspires me is that I make a point of getting into a lot of memory care and assisted living communities, and I think that overall the mentality really is, there's a great at trying to slow decline, right? But not really a sense of let's help you dream about what additional chapters or paragraphs or segments you could have in your life to do things that really turn you on. And I do think even at that level, we have great opportunities.
Understandably, and admittedly, part of it is regulation drives safety, security, and comfort.
Right.
People do not get a sense of purpose, satisfaction, and joy out of safety, security, and comfort.
That's right.
The greatest generation accepted that. Boomers will not, thankfully.
Yep.
But, I think so, it's represented, even just 10 years ago, you didn't want to have sensory stimulation of individuals with Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. That was like, oh my gosh. But now we have sensory rooms where we deliberately want to, yes, in a directed way, we want to trigger music and we want to trigger things, sights and sounds and tastes, because we know that is wired to giving a sense of pleasurable feelings and also can literally help bring back memories, as we're seeing with music and music therapy. So, I do think it's very hard for operators today in the memory care field because the understanding of both the diseases of different forms of dementia and is changing so dramatically. It's pretty darn hard to keep up with it. So if you have sort of had a certain design for your communities and a certain design in terms of programming, you may literally today be reading some new research and saying, I need to rethink this. And so that, admittedly, that's hard to do. If you've got just 20 communities and suddenly you're saying, gosh, we've been thinking about this wrong.
Yeah.
And so that's exciting, but admittedly, it's pretty darn challenging.
Well, it is. It's really hard, and a lot of times it's mindset more than physical plan. But you design this program and you think it's the very best, and then all of a sudden the new research comes in and says, no, that's not really it. I mean, healthcare related sort of, but I used to volunteer ski patrol, and it was remarkable to me how much the protocols for CPR changed. I mean, just radically changed because we got data and we learned that the things we thought worked really well actually weren't very good. And yet, but I'm really, and I think you are too, but I'm really optimistic. I mean, sometimes you can look at it and feel really frustrated and feel like, come on, don't you get it? But I see a lot of people who are really exploring and thinking about it and are trying new things. And so I do think we're going to get
more of that here at this event.
Right.
If I look back over the history, since I have a bit,
Yep.
but then I see events, there's more openness to innovation and more of a sense that we need to consider some new and different ways of thinking about how we're going to meet the needs of our customer. Because that's ultimately what they're in the business to do. And I think there's more openness to ideas from outside our sector. I think for years we were Avis, but we definitely then meant that we knew our sector and nobody else knew it.
Yeah.
Okay? And now what we're seeing with disruption is a sense that we need the new ideas.